Well, hello, Shiny Crafty People. It's Totten here, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to share with you 10 things that I wish I had known when I first started sewing. Now, that's been 35 or more years ago now, and obviously, I couldn't have learned everything at the time. My two amazing grandmothers who taught me to sew gave me so much knowledge, but there was only so much time that I had with them to learn things, and frankly, I think they've forgotten more than I will ever know about sewing. So these are some of the things that I wish we had gotten to, and also things I've learned along the way that would have made my sewing experience so much better. So let's get into it. The first thing I really wish I had known was about proper sewing machine maintenance. And here's the thing, I inherited an old sewing machine from my grandmother, and it worked wonderfully when she gave it to me. But over time, it started to have some issues, and I wish I had realized that those were because I hadn't properly maintained the machine. So proper sewing machine maintenance includes a lot of things, like making sure you've oiled certain parts of the machine, making sure that you're cleaning out around your bobbin case. And here's one of the secrets. The tools that you need for this are a soft bristled brush that you can get in there and pull out all of the lint and thread pieces and other dander that gets into your bobbin case and into the workings of your sewing machine. But don't be tricked into thinking that those spray cans of compressed air are really good for your machine. In fact, I found through a very costly process that this actually pushes all of that lint and the thread pieces into the workings of your machine and will clog it up, resulting in a rather hefty repair bill and some odd looks from the sewing machine repair person when they say, how did all this get shoved so far up into this machine? But that's because that spray can of air forces all of that material into the workings of the machine. So instead, you can get a small handheld vacuum, or like I've done in the past, you get a attachment that's a real tiny little hose with all these little brushes that you can get into the far reaches and suck out all of those things. You vacuum them out. You know, number two is the one that I don't know how often I have been in the middle of a project and realized that I ran out of bobbin 2-3 minutes ago. The only thing worse than that is realizing that I don't have any more bobbins wound, and I'm gonna have to break all of my concentration and my rhythm to wind a bobbin. So my second thing that I wish I had known was that you should pre-wind some bobbins, and especially pre-wind bobbins for your most common colors, white, black, and a gray, maybe if you do a lot of red stitching, or if you're doing a project that requires a specific color, pre-wind a couple of bobbins. The worst thing that will happen is you have some bobbins left over for the future when you do another project with a similar color. The other important thing to know is bobbins are cheap. Really, the bobbin case may not be, but the bobbin itself is relatively cheap, and they don't put that much thread on each bobbin when you wind them. So you're better off go ahead and buying a pack of 30, 50 bobbins that will fit your machine and winding a decent amount of them. In fact, when I was sewing a lot, people asked me, my family asked, what could we get you as a good Christmas gift? And I told my aunt, you know, it's a weird gift, but could you just wind a bunch of bobbins for me? Like pick a bunch of different threads and wind bobbin. And she came through like crazy. I think she wound 30 different colors of bobbins for me. So I didn't have to wind any bobbin thread for like 2 years. It was amazing. And unless your machine can wind a bobbin while you're still sewing, it means you're out of commission to wind a new bobbin. So it would be totally worth it to pre-wind some bobbins. I wish I had known that a lot sooner. All right, number 3 should be obvious, but it's not if no one tells you. It's that you need to change your needle regularly. I wish I had known that because my machine worked really great for a couple months, and then things started going wrong. Like it wouldn't always sew through all the fabrics that I had, and sometimes the bobbin wouldn't catch below, and then I broke threads quite a lot, and I didn't really understand why. And it's because I had never actually changed a needle with my grandmother's unless the needle had broken. Well, the reality is your needles aren't always gonna break, and I went 2 full years before I actually figured out I needed to change my needle. I know, I don't know how it lasted that long, but it's the case. And to add on to that, I wish I had known that not every fabric can use the same needle. There are certain fabrics that you just need a different type of needle. There are great videos online already about how to choose needles for your different fabrics, so I'm not gonna go into those. But you should look that up, check it out, learn that kind of information, especially about your machine and about the fabrics that you use most regularly. So number 4, which I didn't say it, was getting different needles. Number 5, something I really wish I had known earlier is that mistakes happen. You're gonna make mistakes, and that's perfectly fine. In fact, if you made an entire project without any mistakes, I would be completely amazed and surprised, and I'd wonder how that was possible. Either you got lucky or it's just something you've done so many times. But there's projects that I've done over and over again, I still make a mistake partway through. And if you've watched my videos for any length of time, you've seen me make those mistakes. I'll give you a little secret though. I leave the mistakes in my videos because that's part of the process. And I want people to know that they don't have to feel like they're gonna do it perfectly the first time. I want you to know that it's possible to sew everything the way you think it's supposed to be done and have something go wrong still. You're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. So guess what? You gotta have a nice seam ripper standing by so you can fix your mistakes. It's not the end of the world. Number 6 is really important. It's something I wish I had known sooner, and that is, I gotta grab a couple things to show you. These are scissors. They are not meant for turning the corners in fabric. In other words, you're sewing along and you've sewn something inside out, and then it's time to turn inside right side out. Is that the right way to say it? And then you push your sharp, pointy scissors into the corner to shove that fabric out. I don't know how many times I have gone straight through that corner of fabric and completely messed up this beautiful thing I had made. And really, if I had just spent a couple dollars on a point turner, this is a wooden one made of bamboo. See, it's not as sharp as a point. Now listen, there are other bamboo things you could use. In fact, if you have some chopsticks, pretty good. A large knitting needle, like a number 10 or larger, has a blunt enough end. And they make things like this, which are actually meant to be turning fabric. I wish I had known that sooner. I would have saved so many projects that I messed up, and I wouldn't have had to go fix them later because I had made a mistake. Number 7 is so important. I wish I had learned a little bit of patience so that I would do the math before I started. I'm gonna show you right now a quilt that I made for my grandmother. As far as I know, it's the first quilt anyone had ever made for her in her entire life. She made all these quilts for so many other people. I wanted to make her a beautiful log cabin quilt. And I thought, I'll use 1-inch wide strips, thinking that would work. Well, I forgot to do the math of adding a 1/4 inch on each side. So I ended up with 1/2-inch wide strips, and the entire little lap quilt had more than 1,700 pieces of fabric in it. It was a crazy, crazy thing. And I have to tell you, I wish that I had known sooner that I should have done the math beforehand, and I would have really. So if you're gonna do a project, you need to do it. You just need to sit down and do the math and figure out what things are gonna happen. It's also gonna really help if you're drafting a pattern or making a shirt or a jacket or something for yourself where measurements really matter. Well, you have to recognize that, okay, just because I have this size of a waist, it doesn't mean that I can make a garment that actually is that size. Unless it has stretch, it's not gonna fit. I've gotta add some into it. I gotta recognize how big it's gonna be. And so make sure you do the math before you get started. Number 8 is one that I struggled with for the longest time. And it's that you don't have to understand the way colors work together or color theory or be particularly good at putting colors together. You can actually rely on other people's talent and skills here. You might be the world's greatest quilter or sewist, but put together the worst color combinations. And I am so guilty. I've been to stores and bought fabrics together thinking they worked and just get home and start to lay it out and realize it's terrible. Well, guess what? There are amazing fabric collections made by people, and you should follow that. Or grab a charm pack or a layer cake or a jelly roll. These are all packages of fabrics that go together, and they're typically all fabrics in a line of those chosen by the designer that work together. So if you need 8 colors or 8 fabrics for a quilt, go buy one of these packs of fabric that is already put together, and then you now know that these colors work with one another. All right, number 9 is one that it took me far too long to figure out, but now it's my best friend. It's you have to iron as you go along, as you're sewing. You need to press. An iron can be your very best friend. When I was making that log cabin quilt for my grandmother, one of the things I didn't do was press all my seams so that I had nice, and then square up the squares of the fabric. So, it barely went together. And it was such sort of an embarrassment with how bad it was. And I wish I had done such a better job with it. Well, it's fine. It's the way it is. But my quilts and my other items started getting so much better when I would take my time to press the fabrics, press my seams, and follow sort of what makes the most sense for whatever I'm making. So if I'm making quilt blocks that I want to lock together, I press all the seams on one block one way and the other block a different way so they can then nest into one another. There are some seams that you need to really press open. And it also means that if you're going to be doing any kind of sewing where you really want a very specific shape or size, you should press it out and then cut your size. Squaring up blocks makes such a difference, but you got to press them beforehand. And finally, number 10, probably the most important thing to remember. And I wish I had learned this when I was younger. I really thought when I was younger that one day I'll know everything. I'll be the most amazing sewer or quilter on the planet. It'll be unbelievable. I think that was the time I was referring to myself as a seamster, because seamstress didn't work, obviously. But that hasn't caught on. So a sewist, I don't know. Quilter is not exact, so I don't know. But as I knew I was going to become somebody who sewed and did a lot of that as a sewist, I thought, one day I'll learn everything. Here's a secret that you need to know right now. You will never know everything, and that is okay. That means you'll have this great opportunity to still learn from other people all the time. I watch so many creators who are making amazing things and doing really fantastic techniques, specifically on YouTube, and they are bringing us some of the most wonderful ideas. I'm so engaged and energized whenever I see this, and I hope I'm doing the same thing for you as well. Because the reality is you will never, ever learn or know everything, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying. Because just because you don't know everything doesn't mean that you're not good at what you do know and that you can't learn how to do it. I believe that every single person who wants to sit down at a sewing machine can actually learn to do the basic functions to create some pretty amazing things. And once you can unlock that for a person, that they say, oh, you mean I could create my own zippered pouch to carry my pencils and other things in? You mean I could make a shirt for myself? You mean I could actually create some sleep shorts for my boyfriend or my dad or my sister-in-law? Like, I could make that out of their favorite fabric? Wow, that's just somebody using a sewing machine to do that. Well, you unlock some creativity for them. I hope your creativity continues to stay unlocked and that you maybe learn something from this list of 10 things that I wish I had known when I first started sewing. All right, well, who knows? I'll learn more in the next couple of years. Maybe I'll share another video of things I've learned in the last couple of years. But until then, please stay crafty. Bye for now. All right, did I leave anything out? It's okay, because if I did, remember, number 5, mistakes happen.